Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Me too. Cool. So, I got two things to go over today. First, just FYI for everybody, I try and record as many of these lectures as I can, and the recording is my voice and whatever's on the screen, and I record them as YouTube videos. So if you want to go and look at the lecture again after class, or you miss a class, if you just go to the information section of Blackboard and pull up the syllabus, and you scroll down in the syllabus to the course schedule, you'll see there's a little hyperlink on each date. After I complete the lecture, I put a hyperlink in the syllabus. If you click on that hyperlink, it'll open up a YouTube video of the whole lecture. Usually takes me a day or two to get them posted. I have to process the video on my laptop and everything, so it takes a little while, but hopefully within a couple days after each lecture that'll be posted, so you can always go back and refer to things if you missed them. So that's that. And then lecture-wise, I wanted to talk about a few trends and issues in small business management today. Kind of continuing with the overview concept of Tuesday. So it's an interesting time to be studying small business. There's a lot of, it was always interesting to study small business. I think small businesses are just cool, but there's a lot of academic activity and institutes and conferences, and there's a lot of people around the world who are focused specifically on small businesses and how they function and how to best run them, much more so than it was 10 or 20 years ago. So it's a cool time to be involved with this. In my lecture today, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to define a small business. It may seem like a silly question, but with some of my colleagues who study small business and entrepreneurship, there's some subtle differences in definitions and so forth. So I wanted to explore a little bit what I mean in this class by small business. We'll talk a little bit about some major problems facing most small businesses, some current trends that are challenging a lot of small business owners. Talk a little bit about why people start small businesses. Talk about the characteristics of successful entrepreneurs, and then end by doing a little bit of self-analysis on your own motivations as an entrepreneur or small business owner. So, first of all, it's a cool time to be involved with small business. There's 23 million small businesses in the United States. They're responsible for 75% of all the new job creation in the United States. So the new jobs being created each week, each month, each year, 75% of those come from small businesses, not big ones like Microsoft and Chevron and so forth. And about 50% of all jobs, whether they're new or existing, are with small businesses. About 50% are with larger businesses, but about 99% of all employers are small businesses. So in case you weren't already very interested in this class, I want to point out to you just how big the area of small business is, just how all-encompassing it is for the Bakersfield area, for California, for the whole world. There's a whole lot of small businesses all over the place that make the economy go. There's a number of magazines that are specifically focused on entrepreneurship and small business that weren't around 10 or 20 years ago. Entrepreneur Inc. is a good one. Entrepreneurship Theory and Practice and the Journal of Small Business Management are more academic oriented, but they're also very good. Fortune Small Business, Your Company, New Business Opportunities, Black Enterprise, Hispanic Business, Entrepreneurial Women, Family Business Review, the Journal of Family Business Strategy. That's just a few of them. There's compared to 10 or 20 years ago, there's just a whole lot of things you can read about small business, websites you can visit, resources you can consult. It's a lot more sort of mature of a discipline than it was 10 or 20 years ago. And it's an exciting time to be a part of all this. There's also a trend towards self-employment in our society in general. The growth rate for self-employment is greater than the overall general workforce growth rate. So that means there's more people becoming self-employed, like not more total people. The rate at which the number of people creating new jobs for themselves is increasing faster than the total number of new jobs increasing. So there's a lot of people. The point is, there's a lot of people that are going into business for themselves or becoming self-employed or one way or another. A lot of those folks are mid-career managers and executives from larger corporations. That's exactly how I became an entrepreneur and a small business owner. I left Sony and started my music licensing company, and I left Robert Half and started my lead generation service. So some of you may start businesses right away. Some of you may have a business in the family or a small business that you already work for. Some of you may go and work for a larger business to start out with and eventually leave that after a couple of years and start your own business. So that trend is quite alive and well in our society. So defining what a small business is, there's a couple of factors that I think are particularly important about small businesses compared to larger ones. One is that there's a small management team. That means that you've usually got a handful of people. A lot of times it's just one person. And if it's not one person, it's just a couple people who are responsible for making all the key decisions in the company. You don't have a bunch of vice presidents and a board of directors and so forth. There's a very small management team. It's a very different business environment than a larger business. The capital supplied and the ownership is held by one or a few individuals. So as opposed to a publicly traded company that you can buy and sell on Wall Street, small businesses are owned by a handful of individuals, usually the same people that manage the company. The area of operations is primarily local. The market may not necessarily be local, but you usually don't have multiple offices of a lot of small businesses. You'll have one main operation that is here in Bakersfield, or one main operation that's in San Francisco, or wherever else your business might be. But there tends to be one major headquarters and not a lot of branch offices. And then finally, revenues and number of employees are relatively small compared to the competition. So some small businesses are larger than others. So a small business normally to me is a company with 10 employees, 5 employees. It's really small. But if you look at certain industries, everything is bigger. So if you look at the aerospace industry, for example, McDonnell Douglas and Boeing have hundreds of thousands of employees. In the aerospace business, a small business might have 500 or 600 people, even 1,000. But compared to the big companies, they're small by comparison. So sometimes small business is not just about your 5 or 10 or 20 person companies, but about smaller businesses within industries that in general have very large size companies. There's kind of a distinction to be made between entrepreneurship and small business management. This class versus my other class, I talked about how there's a lot of overlap between the two. And one of the big differences is the project that you work on. But another big difference is that entrepreneurial ventures tend to focus on high profitability and growth. They tend to focus on starting something new and building it rapidly. Small business management, the main goal is independence. So you may have a small company that's been in your family for a generation or two, and it's always been 5 people. It's not, nobody wants to make it any more than 5 people, and that's okay. I'm a big fan of small businesses, regardless of what their growth rate is, because of the independence that they have in their decision making and their activities. So when we talk about small business in this class versus entrepreneurship in the other class is more focused on starting new ventures and growing them rapidly. This class is about existing small businesses that may grow, but they may just stay the same size, and that's okay. Some of the major problems facing small businesses these days: inadequate financing, big problem. That was a big problem for both of my companies. I just didn't have enough capital. When you don't have enough capital, when you don't have adequate financing, you can't acquire. A lot of problems cascade from not having enough capital. So you're not able to acquire and maintain the facilities that you need. So you can't buy the equipment that you need. You can't open the office that you need. You can't invest in the hardware and software and subscription and various other things that you need to be successful as a business. You're not able to invest in infrastructure. You can't hire or reward capable employees. That was a huge problem for me with my second business. If I had been able to go out and hire experienced salespeople and pay them $50,000, $75,000 base salary plus commission, it would have been a totally different story. But I had to use low-end temps because I just didn't have, I couldn't afford. I don't have the money to pay somebody to insure $50,000. The business is generating its own income. If the business generates income, I'm happy to give it to you. If it doesn't, then I have no money to give. So it really handicaps you in being able to hire the right kind of employees. And it handicaps you in being able to produce and market your products. So that wasn't so hard in the case of my 2 businesses because they were services rather than products. But if you're making something physically, there's a business that I've done a couple projects for in this class that has a classic problem with inadequate financing for their product. They make little portable toilet seats for children, so you can put the seat on top of a public restroom toilet seat, and it's all clean and sanitary, and it's smaller size so the kid doesn't fall in. But these are made out of plastic, molded plastic, and injection molded plastic. You have to pay like $10,000 to make the mold. So if you can't pay $10,000 to make the mold, then you can't have products to start showing to people and having a small amount of sales. Like you're stuck. You have an idea, but you don't have a product because you need $10,000 just to be able to make the mold to start producing the product. So in a lot of businesses, having inadequate financing means that you just can't make your product. So Infrastructure, the product, and the employees, three really big problems that a lot of small businesses face because they don't have adequate financing. Another problem is inadequate management. That was partially the case with my two businesses. I could have been better. But I think the biggest problem was inadequate financing. But there's a lot of people out there who don't have, they may be experts at fixing cars, but they're not necessarily experts at running businesses. They may be passionate about running a bakery, but not about running a business. So a lot of times there's a lack of knowledge and inexperience in various areas of finance or accounting or management. I was a terrible manager. I wasn't that great with accounting either, but accounting I did okay with. I made it too complicated. I still don't have my own accountant because my accounting system is so damn complicated. I've never gotten around to shifting it over and explaining everything to somebody. But being able to inspire and lead people, being a good manager, being competent with doing bookkeeping, doing outreach for capital, planning operations and logistics. There's a lot of small business owners that are experts in what they love to do, but not experts in various functional areas of the business. A lot of times there's a lack of planning and doing your homework. There's just no substitute. There's no substitute for researching something, for doing the legwork, for building something step by step by step by step. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes if you're in the middle of running a small business, you're worried about closing the deal by the end of the day, or getting this shop product shipped out before Friday, or how am I going to be able to pay my employees this month? And you don't get around to doing the homework on researching for the future that you should do. So a lot of small businesses have a big problem with planning and doing their homework on how to make the business bigger, how to think about the business rather than think in the business. And then finally, unwillingness to involve others in the decision making and operations. It's a classic problem. I've had it. Everybody that I know that's owned a business has had this problem at one time or another. A lot of people start a business because they want to be their own boss. You want to be able to make all the decisions yourself. You don't want to have to listen to somebody else. And you tend to get isolated and make bad decisions because you don't get advice from other people. It's really important to get advice from other people and involve your employees, involve your family members in the decision-making process. Don't make decisions alone. It's very important to involve others in your decision-making as a small business owner, and a lot of small businesses tend to not do that. One other issue, there are some pretty burdensome government regulations and paperwork at times that small businesses have to deal with. So there's kind of a one-size-fits-all mentality that a lot of lawmakers have, where you make a law about certain HR issues or a law about environmental protections or whatever, and you expect that there's going to be a report filed every 3 months with the state labor board or the state environmental protection board. And when you make the legislation, you don't think about the fact that a 5-person business has like 1 employee and maybe 4 people from the family that all kind of help out, and 1 person who actually has a salary. And writing a whole big report of 50 pages long for 1 employee is crazy. But sometimes you still have to do that kind of stuff because there's no exception made in the law for a small business. So sometimes there's kind of burdensome bureaucracy that you have to deal with. And sometimes regulations are complex or contradictory. So when you don't have a large legal team or a large bureaucratic team that can deal with things like that, it tends to become burdensome for small businesses. Some trends and challenges facing small business owners. Exploding technology. I mean, any class, pretty much any class that you take anywhere at Cal State or anywhere else, any job you go into in this world is all being affected by really rapid technological change in our world these days. It's amazing. Moore's law, for example, that computer power tends to double every 18 months. That's an amazing exponential growth of computing power. There's an amazing exponential growth of the size of the volume of information on the internet, the number of apps that are out there that help you do various things, new software programs. There's just tremendous change and new stuff coming along constantly with technology. So it's really important that small businesses continuously seek out new and better technologies and don't get stuck with what used to work. Don't get stuck with 3 years ago or 5 years ago software. Make sure that you're on the cutting edge of software and hardware, and be open to change. Obviously, you need to not have so much change that it causes chaos in your daily operations, but you want to have a mentality that's open to change, especially with regard to technology, software, hardware, the way that you do things in your office. There's many ways where when I started my small business, I started doing it with a certain hardware and software setup, and I didn't want to change, and I waste so much time doing things the old way because I'm not willing to change and get a new software package and learn how to use it. If I did that, then I'd be 5 times more efficient, but I'm just reticent to change. So it's important to have a attitude that's welcoming towards change. There's some occupational and industry shifts that are going on in the world in different areas. So there's shifting labor force skills, accounting majors versus marketing majors versus computer science majors, for example. I haven't been at Cal State long enough to notice, and there's not enough concentrations really within our business program for it to be much of a difference. But back at University of Cincinnati, for example, where I used to teach, I noticed a big shift between the number of people that were majoring in accounting and finance and the number of people that were majoring in marketing. Like there was almost like a generational shift. People that were graduating from 2010 or 2005 through 2010 were majoring a lot more in accounting, and from 2010 to 2020, many more marketing majors. So you've got trends like that at various universities that are providing your employees. The same thing goes for trade schools and everything else. Like the labor base that you have to hire as a small business owner is changing over the course of time, and there's not always enough of the kind of people that you need. There's huge industry shifts that are going on right now too. Things like the obsolescence of taxis through companies like Uber, and the challenges that hotels face because of Airbnb. If you looked 50 or 100 years ago, there wasn't nearly as rapid of a change in industry situations like there is today. So because of technology, there's some pretty game-changing things that happen that affect entire industries, like Uber, like Airbnb. So it's important again to keep an open mind about what your industry is and what's changing it, or you get left behind by time, basically. Global challenges. There's lower wage rates in almost everywhere besides America. Northern Europe is probably an exception, but there's lower wage. There's very affordable wage rates in China, in India, in most of Southeast Asia, certain parts of Africa, certain areas in Eastern Europe. Just have lower wage rates, lower wage rates, lower standard of living than we have here in the United States. That sometimes makes it tough for you as a small business to compete for an international market, because your labor force is costing more than labor forces in other countries. You've also got better math and science training in a lot of other countries besides the United States. So depending on what kind of small business you're starting and managing, you may need people who are not even available in Bakersfield or not even available in the United States or in California. It's a difference than there would have been 50 or 100 years ago in terms of your labor market. It's a shrinking world, so we're entering an age of sort of one global market, one world market. I put together a lot of the bullet points in this slide show from a textbook that I have on small business management. And they had mentioned that half of all college graduates today will work in some kind of global activity in the future. I'd say that's actually even higher than that. Over the course of time that you're working in job X, Y, or Z, you're either going to have customers or suppliers who are from another country. It's so easy to communicate and do business with other countries with the internet and Skype technology and relatively affordable transportation costs. There's anybody in here who thought they were going to start a small business and just be dealing with things locally in Bakersfield or locally in California, I think you're going to be surprised to find out that you're doing a lot more business internationally than you realize, either with suppliers or customers or both. In that respect, there's an increasing number of born global firms, which basically means that from day one of their operations, they already have international customers or international suppliers. That was the case with both of my companies. When I started them intending to represent one country in another country. So there's a lot more of your businesses that you guys will end up starting that from day one already have international suppliers and or customers. Why people start small businesses? There's a number of different reasons, but I want to go over some of the big ones. I'm curious for you guys what you identify with here. A lot of people will start a small business to satisfy personal objectives. So maybe you want to be independent, or you have a personal passion for, I have a big passion for music. So that's why I got into the music business in the first place and started my company in the music business, because I love music. You may want additional income. That may be the driving reason why you want to start a business, not because you care about accounting, but because you want to have your own company so that you make more money than working for somebody else. You may need to support your family and be involved with the family business, or you may need to create your own new small business in order to bring in extra money or develop extra opportunities for your family members to either be involved in work or have more money coming in from the family. You may just be driven to provide better products and services. So I think last year I had a couple projects in my entrepreneurship class where I had engineering students who were working on new agricultural technologies. And these were people who had worked in agricultural companies both during high school and during college, and they saw how they saw how irrigation is inefficient, and they wanted to make it better. So sometimes the reason for getting into a small business or being in it is because you just believe that there's a better way to do things, and you want to make better products or services for the market. There's various business objectives that you might possibly have as a small business owner. Some people are much more focused on providing top quality service, like their reputation with their customers is really the thing that's most important to them, and the relationship they have with their customers. If they don't make that much money, but everybody thinks that they're great people, then that's more important to them than making more money and having people upset with them. Some people, the key goal of the company is to make as much profit as you can. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes there's social goals, so you may be running a small business or getting into small business management because you want to have more time to spend with your family. You want to have flexible business hours. There's a number of personal reasons why it might be nicer to work for a small business or own your own small business rather than working for Chevron or Microsoft or something like that. And then sometimes the goal is growth. Sometimes, some companies want to stay a 2 or 3 or 5 person company. Other companies want to become 50 people or want to become 100 people, and that's the big goal of the company is to become bigger. So, different goals for different businesses, different goals for different people involved in small business, and you really need to mesh your objectives when you're running a small business. So, you need to achieve synergies between your personal objectives and your business objectives, so that the same activities accomplish multiple objectives. I was very bad at this with my 2 companies that I started. I have a neurotic need to. I'm very OCD in some ways. So, like once I decide that there need to be 50 sales calls made, then I have only one mission in this world, and that's to pick up the phone 50 times and make 50 calls. I don't care about anything else except making those 50 calls. But I do it to make me feel better about myself at the end of the day. I'm not necessarily doing it because it's the best thing for the business. I'm doing it because I want to feel better about myself. If I had realized that the business actually needed more social media outreach and less phone calls, then I could have set a different goal for myself, still gotten that feeling of satisfaction at the end of the day, but have done something that was more important for the company. So whether it's your own personal schedule, wanting to spend time with family, personal satisfaction that you get out of the activities, your passion for the product, like you got to make sure that whatever your personal reasons are for being involved in the company, that those mesh with what the business needs to be successful. If you can't make them match up, then you got problems as a small business owner. There's a couple of characteristics that are usually the case for successful entrepreneurs. A lot of them desire independence. So it's a big thing that for most people that start a new business or run their own small business, they want to be independent. They have a strong sense of initiative, so taking initiative and doing things rather than waiting for somebody else to say it should be done. They're motivated by personal and family considerations, so a lot of times it's your own personal satisfaction that you get out of the business, or you have family members who are involved in the business already, or you have a desire to spend time with your family, and therefore you have a small business rather than a large business. A lot of entrepreneurs are driven by personal and family considerations. They expect quick and concrete results, so they're not usually satisfied with kind of slowly developing some ideas, and then maybe we have some conversations with other people, and then maybe we write up some summaries of what we talked about. It's usually bang, bang, bang. What do I want to get done, and what are the deadlines? They're able to react quickly, so I think that's even a bigger challenge today than ever before because of how rapidly technology is changing. I don't think I was very good at that as an entrepreneur. Was reacting quickly enough to changes in either my customer base or changes in how I needed to be running the company, or changes in the targets for my markets. You need to be able to react quickly. They're dedicated to their business, and it's actually interesting, enter business as much by chance as by design. So I was kind of a little bit of both. The reason that I started both of my companies is because I wasn't getting along with the people that I worked with. So there was so much politics at Sony that had nothing to do with making good music. It was just politics about who has control over what, and who builds an empire, and who has more employees. I couldn't deal with that anymore. My boss hired me to take over the job of the person who was with me before, who was having domestic abuse problems, and had to take a leave of absence. And I didn't think it was right that I should profit from somebody else's misery and fire them just because they're having a bad time. But that was the whole reason I was hired, was to replace somebody who was on disability leave because of domestic violence situation. That's not cool to me. So I didn't want to be a part of that, and so I left the company and started my own company. But I wasn't necessarily planning on starting a licensing company in 2003. It just so happens that in 2003, I was faced with this situation that I wasn't willing to accept in the job, so I had to leave the job, and it was time to start the business. So a lot of times you get into the business by accident, not necessarily because you planned on starting the business right then. I'm curious, as the last thing to go over today, a little bit of introspective analysis of yourselves. So I'd like everybody in here to think a little bit about your own values, your own mental abilities, and your own attitudes. And let's chat a little bit about that before we leave. So take a look at the why people start businesses, and write that. Make some notes to yourself on which ones you identify with, which ones resonate with you, and which ones don't bother to write down the ones that don't make any sense to you or don't resonate with you. Write down the ones that really, that's me. some of the things you guys wrote down? Anybody want to speak up about some of the things you identify with?
Profit and income.
Profit and income. Yeah?
Yeah.
You're a big profit guy?
I like it, but independence and, growth are good things too.
But the thing that resonates most with you is making as much money as possible?
Not as much, but comfortable amount, and then, being able to fuel your passion that way.
Okay. And what was did you have a business idea that you mentioned? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or a small business?
It's basically a barcade. Every major city has half a dozen. We have none. And if you tie that to like a craft concept, like an upscale craft concept, it becomes something
Okay.
manageable, something doable.
Cool. Yes.
I was going to say I'm drawn to being independent, doing your own thing, and then also not necessarily providing a better service, but creating a better work environment for employees.
Okay.
Like you're saying, the whole politics, actually creating the opposite of that.
Trying to set up I think my dad got he started his business because he wanted to make a better political environment. He was very against the politics of the chemical company that he worked for, and really wanted to start an ideal, kind of like a little commune. He was a big flower child.
Yeah.
Cool. And did you have one of the ventures that you mentioned?
No.
Okay. Who else? Tell me. Yeah.
I wrote down 3 of them.
Tell me your name again.
Graham.
Graham.
Richard.
And actually, you guys tell me your names too.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Logan.
Logan. Okay.
I wrote down independence and providing a more unique product at higher quality.
Okay.
So, and I guess business objectives would be more so social and growth right now. I can manage the whole break-even thing, but just about expanding the brand for me right now.
Okay.
The Omer Threads is what my business venture was.
That's a cool one. Other people. Yes. What's your name?
Summer.
Summer. Okay.
Kind of the same as the previous people on independence and providing like better services. I'm one of those people that's like really stern on I always figure out a different way to get things done. So I like kind of planning and like problem solving like that. So I like to create services that I think flow better in a way.
Okay. I get it. I think. I wanted to get into the music business because I love music, but the specific licensing company that I started a lot because I thought that the way people were doing things at Sony was all fucked up. Excuse my language, and I wanted to do it better. So I can identify with that too. Other responses? Yes.
Mine would be really family oriented.
Okay.
My husband travels for work, so if we could start something that keeps him home.
Oh, that'd be great, huh?
Yes.
What does he travel for right now?
He's a steel builder.
Okay.
It's all construction now.
Got it. That would be very nice to start something that kept him home.
Yes.
Any ideas?
Anything construction. He does anything from setting tiles to building roofs, top to bottom.
Okay. Cool. Your name?
Ashlyn.
Ashley. Other responses? Yes, Jennifer.
I kind of put the same thing, more passion and to just make your own schedule, to be at home, work from home most of the time, to eventually have kids and not miss out on their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Very important. I know a lot of people whose main motivation in their job is to be able to be at home with their kids or with their family. But both of you, whether it's your spouse or your kids, big appeal of being a small business owner is having that flexibility in your schedule. Other people? Other hands? Yes. What's your name?
Charlie.
Charlie.
I just had personal passion.
McConnell?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm starting to eventually, I'm gonna make a map of everybody's faces in this room and put names with them and try to memorize, but it's gonna take me a little while.
I just put personal passion because I've had my own company for like 4 years. I
Mhm.
love what I do, and I love buying and selling and finding things that other people will love. So yeah, I just think.
What do you love about it the most?
Just like because I buy and sell clothes,
Mhm.
and just seeing how like excited someone gets about the stuff I find or the stuff that I sell them, or just I don't know, it's just fun buying and selling. I don't know. I just find it to be fun.
Cool.
I don't really know how to describe
Well,
it.
that's, I mean, honestly, I mean, it's interesting. I've been at Cal State, this is my 4th year now, and the first 2 years, I was just having a blast. Like, it's my job, but I don't even consider it a job because I love what I do. Last year I got kind of disillusioned. But I know that the reason I wanted to become, and I'm hoping to get back to the other feeling a little bit more this year. I'm enjoying the start so far with you guys and my other classes. It's a good start to the year. But the main reason why I wanted to become a professor, the thing that when I was most successful with my own business was when it doesn't feel like work. And you do it because you love doing it. And that's like both the case with being a professor most of the time, and was the case when I used to run my own business too. I get it.
Yeah, so it's not so much about money, but it's just like just enjoy doing it, no matter if you're making a profit or not.
Mm-hmm. Other responses? Nobody else want to speak up? Okay, that was pretty good responses. I'll let the rest of you off the hook. So that's all I wanted to go over for today. We're done a little bit early, but enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you all on Tuesday. Yes.
So I was just wondering, do you have to grant us permission for Blackboard? Because I seem to be having trouble finding.
When's the last time you tried?
Yesterday, last night?
Should work.
Should work? Okay, I'll check one more time.
Try again.
All right.
If not, email me.
Sure.
And I can CC the people that run Blackboard and figure out what's wrong.
Okay, I had one more thing.
Uh-huh.
I have a religious conference that I attend every year.
Uh-huh.
And this year it falls on week 4 and 5. And so that means I won't be in class.
That's fine.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any...
I don't do attendance, so
Yeah, I figured. I mean, I kind of noticed
it's
that.
as long as you coordinate with your team members for your project and make sure that
And
they're...
it's awesome that you record lectures, so that really helps.
Yeah, so you can watch the lectures that are recorded.
Okay.
And as long as you're
And that's really the only thing
on
going
the same page with your team members, it's fine.
The group project is the only really thing that is an assignment
Mhm.
besides the end of the semester project.
Yes,
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
no problem.
Hey,
Yes,
so I just wanted
Summer.
to tell you in advance, yeah, I'm on the swim team.
Okay,
My advisor's just running late on the missed class letters.
That's
So
fine.
I just don't want to spring it on you like a week from now. I wanted
No,
to
that's
keep it
okay.
going you a little bit.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, I'm sorry that she's like, we were supposed to get them like yesterday and we still don't have them today, so just warning you.
No
But
problem.
I don't think I'm missing any, but if I do, I will see on the list.
Sounds good to me. Yes.
I have you for 2 classes.
Uh-huh.
So for the email assignment, do I just send you
Just do it once.
and then on the